Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. If you are an internet service provider and you are providing the benefit of the Affordable Connectivity Program, you now have a date as to when you need to send your first communication to your ACP recipients, letting them know that the program may be ending, and that's within 14 days. Be right back. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Broadband Deployment News. So there's been a lot of news about this in the last week. I reported about this a couple of times already this week. First, there was the announcement from the FCC that they needed to start winding down the program. And I think there was a strategy there as well to get letters in front of congressional leadership and hopefully make them take action to fund the program further, because without further funding, the money will be gone in April sometime, and looks like May will be the end of that. So they did, in addition to providing just a quick notice of that, they sent letters to congressional leadership. And then a day or two later, a bipartisan bill was introduced that would extend the ACP, another $7 billion that would extend it out about through the end of the year or so. But there's a question as to whether that will actually make it onto the floor to get a vote. If it does make it on the floor to get a vote, there's a good chance it might pass. But it's stuck with a bunch of other budgetary kinds of things, and it may not get a floor vote, in which case may not see the light of day. So there's still a question up in the air. But the FCC has now come out with this you see here, where they are basically following through with what they said, which is they need to start winding down the program, and there are going to be some requirements if you're an internet service provider on communicating with your customers that have the ACP through you on what they need to do and what is going to be available to them. So I wanted to touch base on that real quick so that you're aware of this, because again, the first deadline is within 14 days of the publishing of this, which was yesterday. So I will take a quick look at this. I've linked to this document right here, where you can see the news release if you want to check that out, and then also the order that I'm going to be looking at here, which is this. So let's take a quick look at this. So you see here where I can scroll. I see the date here, January 11th. In this order, and consistent with the authority delegated by the FCC, the Wireline Competition Bureau announces requirements and guidance for the wind down of the ACP. We currently project that the last month for which the ACP can fully reimburse providers for the ACP benefits provided is April 2024. Should Congress not appropriate additional money, the existing funds will be exhausted. The Commission will have to end the ACP, and the providers will stop providing discounts to enrolled households. The Commission nonetheless remains dedicated to providing the ACP households an orderly transition out of the program, and more importantly, to keeping as many ACP households as possible connected to broadband service after the end of the program. So one thing mentioned here is the last full month of, full subsidies would be April. It's possible that there will be some additional money left over in May, in which case if a service provider was still offering it, they could get a partial payment. And then the question is, what do they do with that? Do they eat that if they don't get the full subsidy, or do they bill the subscriber for the remainder? So those are the kinds of things that need to be communicated to the end users as to what the internet service provider is going to do about that. And also here it mentions that the FCC wants to keep a reasonable number of people that can sign up to broadband even without the ACP. So there are some things that they talk about in here where they would like providers to be able to provide a low-cost option, or for those that are low income to have options. Some already do have that, so some of that's covered in here as well. So I was going to skip some of this background about the ACP and get down here to where we're talking about what's going on. So you see here the current USAC forecast projects that there are sufficient funds to pay all provider claims in full through the April 2024 service month. That's based on what they're calculating now. The timeline for the wind down procedures set forth in this order are based on this forecast. However, the projected last fully funded month may shift based on changes in ACP enrollment trends or any additional funding if provided by Congress after release of this order. So they're still hoping that Congress will come forward and pass that bill, for example, for another $7 billion, in which case that would take out another 10 to 12 months on the program. But it could, they're not stopping enrollments. They're saying you can keep enrolling people out through the beginning of February. So obviously if internet service providers continue to sign people up, and a lot of people sign up now that haven't, thinking, wow, I'm going to go ahead and at least get a month or two of this, then that could impact the funds that are available, and it could actually end sooner. Preparing consumers for the end of the ACP, timing a Bureau announcement of last fully funded month of program. The Bureau will announce the upcoming end of the ACP approximately 60 days prior to the end of the last fully funded month of the program. Again, they're looking at that as being April, so we're just about there. Thus, based on current projections that the last fully funded month of the ACP is April 2024, we anticipate that this announcement will occur in late February 2024, but this timing may adjust based on activity in the program, particularly as a result of the freeze in enrollments discussed below. The Bureau's 60-day notice of the end of the last fully funded month of the program will, as set forth below, trigger certain required communication to households receiving the ACP-supported service, clearly explaining the impact of the end of the benefit on their broadband bills so that households can make an informed choice about the broadband service that they receive to stay connected. However, as set forth below, we require providers to begin informing households about the upcoming end of the ACP benefit prior to this 60-day notice. So even prior to them coming out and saying, yeah, for sure, this is when it's happening, you, as an ISP, need to start this process. In fact, like I say, it's within 14 days. So timing and content of provider notices. Providers shall send at least 3 notices related to the end of the ACP to their ACP households. The first required notice shall be sent as soon as practicable, but no later than 14 days after the release of this order, and this order was released yesterday, and shall generally advise ACP households about the possibility of the program termination and the potential impact on their broadband service and bills. After the Bureau issues its 60-day notice announcing the end of the last fully funded month of the ACP, providers shall send the second and third required notices to their ACP households, notifying those households about the end of the program. The second required notice shall be sent as soon as practicable, but no later than 15 days after the last fully funded month of the ACP is announced by the Bureau in the 60-day notice. So sometime around the end of February probably is when that's going to take place as far as when you need to send that out. The third required notice shall coincide with the last bill or billing cycle in which the full ACP benefit is applied. The second and third required notices shall indicate that the ACP is ending and shall include, number 1, the date of the last bill on which the full ACP benefit will be applied, and 2, the amount that the household will be billed for the service once the full ACP benefit is no longer available, and or that the household will be subject to the provider's undiscounted rates and general terms and conditions after the end of the ACP. And again, I put the date right here. Just again, first notice by January 25th, 2024 is what's required. The second and third notices should also remind ACP households of their ability to change their service and or to opt out of continuing their service at the end of the ACP. Providers are strongly encouraged to include in these notices information on their lower cost offerings and low income programs, or a phone number or a link to a website where ACP households may obtain such information. So as I mentioned the other day, a lot of folks that have signed up for the ACP didn't necessarily sign up for the lowest cost option. In some cases, they already had service and they were able to increase the speed that they had because they were getting a $30 subsidy toward that. So, quite a few people were on gigabit plans, actually, if they were available, and they were getting that through the ACP. So the notice needs to let folks know that, hey, right now you're on our gigabit plan, which this is the regular cost for that, and we have these other options available. So there may be something that, even though they'll be losing the $30 subsidy, maybe they can continue to pay the same amount that they've been paying. They'll just reduce the product that they have, or that obviously they don't need to continue the service at all. But again, the FCC is trying to get people to continue to stay connected. A lot of folks that signed up for the ACP were already connected. It's not like it's not like everybody that came on with that didn't have broadband before. It just provided them a way to get either a free service, depending on if they were maybe a low-cost $30 kind of package, or again, a discount off of something faster than that. Delivery of public notices or provider notices. The required provider notices shall be sent to ACP households in writing in a manner that is accessible to persons with disabilities. We encourage providers to send these notices in a format, for example, email, text message, or paper mail, that's consistent with any consumer express preferences for receiving notices. So however you happen to communicate with your customers, you would do that in the same way. So that I would imagine would be an email. Maybe you have the ability to text, and then certainly maybe a bill insert or a letter sent to them. I think a letter would be the best thing to make sure that you include, because you want to make sure that subscribers are fully aware of what their options are and the fact that they will be billed if they're not being billed today, or they'll be billed a higher amount once this subsidy ends. There's information here about subscriber opt-ins, so you can go ahead and read through that. As to, you want to make sure that anybody that decides they do want to keep the service, that it's very clear that they've opted in to do that, that you didn't just not hear from them and then you're going to continue to bill them. So read through that. That's important. Here we see providers who already offer low-income internet programs are encouraged to help interested ACP households not already participating in these programs to transition to these programs. And providers that do not currently offer low-income internet programs are encouraged to develop such programs. And a lot of service providers do offer that. They have these low-income programs, and it's similar kinds of things that you might need to qualify for the ACP that you might have to provide to the service provider if you're a consumer. In fact, one of the things that would qualify somebody for the ACP is if they qualified for the internet service provider's low-income program that was already in place. So, as I mentioned the other day, 4 out of 10 households actually qualify for the ACP. So I think that's one of the problems, in the sense that we ran out of money very quickly, is because there's 23 million households, and that's probably half of what really could qualify under the program. So it's hard to maintain that. The $7 billion that they are trying to get allocated to extend that would barely take it through the end of the year. And that's not considering any growth, and that's not considering a possible change that they were going to make with going from $30 to $75 in high-cost areas, which I'll mention here in a minute. Enrollment freeze and its impact on the ACP outreach. The Bureau will freeze new enrollments into the ACP beginning on February 8th, 2024. Accordingly, enrollments into the ACP will be permitted until February 7th, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. So basically up till midnight on the 7th. But if you're an internet service provider, you might want to, I would want to hold off on that. I wouldn't want to be signing people up and then possibly have to take that away right away. So you're actually going to be notifying people prior to this deadline, or to this basically deadline on signing people up. So you're going to be notifying people by January 25th, but yet you could theoretically continue to sign people up till February 7th. So I'm assuming that's just a date that's out there to kind of wind things down, but I'm assuming it'd be best to not try to sign people up yet until we see what the future of the ACP is going to be. With the anticipated freeze in enrollments, we also plan to pause certain activities related to advertising, awareness, and outreach, and they should be pausing that now if they haven't already. And there are also there's also grantees that have money, that get grant money through the ACP to be able to promote it and to be able to navigate people through signing up. All of those activities, in my opinion, should stop, because again, all of that, the more people that sign up between now and the end of this thing, then it's very possible that the funds will last even less than April. It could be that there won't be full funds for April either. So they should try to put the brakes on some of this stuff until they determine what's going to happen here with any future funding. Let's see, ACP outreach grant pilot programs. That's what I was talking about. The Commission, in adopting rules for the ACP, stated entities that receive grant awards may continue to use their grant funds for outreach until enrollment ceases. So these folks that are doing these grants could continue these activities until that February date when enrollment ceases. But again, I don't know if I'd be pushing people or helping people sign up for something that could be going away within 2 months. So, but they still could be doing that until the date of the enrollment ceases. The Bureau and the CGB will coordinate on communications and instructions to grant recipients and pilot participants on the need to cease grant-funded outreach work and other pilot-related activities that focus on enrollment activities as a result of the enrollment freeze. Partial reimbursement. In the event that reimbursement claims in the final month of the ACP exceed the amount of remaining funds, reimbursements for benefits passed through to households will be paid out to providers on a reduced pro rata basis. So again, if you, let's say it's fully funded through April, but then in May, if you continue to provide service to folks that are on the ACP, you may only get compensated a partial amount depending on how much funds are left. So you just need to be aware of that. And again, all of that needs to be communicated to the subscribers as they decide whether they want to continue on the program. High cost area benefit provider applications. So this was something that came out, and I was wondering about this. I hadn't heard about it in a while, but this was I think it was a notice of proposed rulemaking. In fact, they were getting ready to accept applications for this, where people in high-cost areas and very high-cost areas in rural locations, instead of getting $30 a month, could get $75 a month, which is the same amount that somebody can get if they're on a tribal land. So here we're talking about over twice the amount that the subsidy would be in a good number of rural locations, and most of the people on the ACP are in rural locations. So this would further decrease the amount that any money would be going toward the ACP, and it would make the program end even sooner. And if we continue on with this and we get the $7 billion, if they decided to go ahead and implement this, it would reduce the amount of time that $7 billion would be useful for probably less than a year at that point. See here, due to the depletion of funding and upcoming enrollment freeze, USAC will not accept provider applications to offer the high-cost area benefit. Furthermore, changing the amount of the discount received by the ACP households enrolled with a provider approved to offer the ACP high-cost area benefit from $30 to $75 may cause increased customer confusion or consumer confusion. With regard to the availability of program funding, the Bureau will reevaluate the status of the ACP high-cost area benefit provider applications if the ACP receives additional funding. And again, if it does, then you'd be talking about that $7 billion. It's not just $30 per month per household. And again, today, 23 million households, but some number of those 23 million households would qualify for the $75 and not $30. So that funding would go even less far at that point. I think that's pretty much it. So there you go. So again, I linked to where you can download this. If you are an internet service provider, this is important that you look at that and look at the requirements for communications to your ACP customers. Again, it's still kind of up in the air what's going to happen. There is the bipartisan bill that was put forward the other day, Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate. There's a lot of industry support for this. As I was saying the other day, this is one of those things that everybody kind of supports because it's free money, and people like free money. So you've got labor unions, you've got the ACLU on one side, and then you've got Republicans in certain states, and you've got the big ISPs that normally are against. You're normally got the big ISPs fighting against the other folks, but they're all in on this because it's good for the ISPs. They get a subsidy so they can get customers that they might not have been able to have because of the pricing, or they have customers that purchase a higher package from them and they're still getting the $30 subsidy, and that way the service provider gets more revenue from that subscriber. It's good for them. Obviously the internet consumers that are getting free internet like it. All of the industry associations like it. So it's something that a lot of support. But again, it's got to get out of committee and get a vote on the House floor. There's just a slim margin on the House floor for Republicans, but they have the control over budgetary items and what they do put out on the floor for a vote. So that's the question right now. So timing-wise, the very first thing you need to know is that you've got to get this notice out within 14 days anyway. And it's very possible that nothing's going to happen in 14 days with this bill, even if it does eventually get to move forward on that. But there's a lot going on with budgetary stuff, lots of negotiations. It could be that this will be approved to go to the floor as part of those negotiations, or it could be that it's not something that's approved because of the negotiations. Who knows? It's all politics. So thanks for joining me today. If this was helpful, if you give me a like on the video, I'd appreciate it. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. So click the subscribe button somewhere down there on YouTube and click the bell and you'll be notified when I'm live. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.